The iron shackles around Ilara's wrists were cold enough to burn, but not nearly as cold as the eyes of the man who now owned her. "Strip," Lord Blackthorne commanded, his voice echoing through the stone chamber deep beneath his estate. "I want to see what I've purchased." Ilara remained perfectly still, her green eyes blazing with defiance despite the hopelessness of her situation. 3 days ago, she had been the daughter of a minor nobleman, living quietly in the countryside with her books and her dreams of studying medicine. Now she was property, sold to pay off her father's gambling debts to the most notorious flesh trader in England. "I said strip," Blackthorne repeated, stepping closer. The torchlight revealed his face in all its cruel detail, sharp features twisted by years of inflicting pain, eyes that held no trace of human warmth. "Or shall I have my men do it for you?" "I'd rather die," Ilara said quietly, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. Blackthorne's laugh was like broken glass. "Death would be a mercy, girl. And I'm not in the business of mercy." He gestured to the 2 guards flanking the chamber's entrance. "Hold her." The guards moved forward, their hands reaching for her torn dress. Ilara closed her eyes and prepared for the inevitable violation of what little dignity she had left. The sound that stopped them was unlike anything she had ever heard, a low, inhuman growl that seemed to come from the very walls themselves. The temperature in the chamber dropped 20 degrees in an instant, and the torches flickered as if a great wind had passed through the sealed room. "Release her." The voice that cut through the darkness was cultured, aristocratic, and absolutely lethal. Ilara's eyes snapped open to see a figure standing in the chamber's doorway. Tall and elegant, with midnight black hair and skin so pale it seemed to glow in the torchlight. He wore an expensive black coat that fit his lean frame perfectly, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of a predator. But it was his eyes that truly captured her attention. They were the color of fresh blood, and they burned with an otherworldly light that made her breath catch in her throat. "Your Highness?" Blackthorne stammered, immediately dropping to one knee. "I didn't expect... That is, I wasn't informed you would be visiting." "Clearly," the newcomer said, his red eyes never leaving Ilara's face. "I asked you to release her, Blackthorne. I won't ask again." The guards stepped back immediately, their faces pale with terror. Blackthorne rose slowly, his expression a mixture of confusion and barely concealed fear. "Your Highness, there must be some mistake. The girl is my property, legally purchased." "Show me the contract." Blackthorne fumbled in his coat pocket, producing a rolled parchment with shaking hands. The stranger, who could only be Prince Lucian Dracul, heir to the vampire throne and the most powerful supernatural being in the British Isles, took the document and examined it with casual interest. "Ilara Whitmore," he read aloud, his voice making her name sound like poetry. 22 years old, sold by her father to satisfy debts totaling £3,000. His red eyes flicked to her face. "Is this accurate, Miss Whitmore?" Ilara nodded, not trusting her voice. She had heard stories about Prince Lucian, whispered tales of his cruelty, his power, his complete lack of human emotion. According to legend, he was over 500 years old and had never shown mercy to anyone who crossed him. So why was he here? And why was he looking at her as if she were something precious, rather than something to be used and discarded? "The contract appears to be in order," Prince Lucian said, still studying the parchment. "Legal, binding, properly witnessed." Blackthorne's relief was visible. "Yes, Your Highness, everything is completely legitimate." The sound of tearing paper cut him off. Prince Lucian had ripped the contract in half, then in half again, letting the pieces flutter to the stone floor like snow. "Not anymore," he said calmly. "Your Highness," Blackthorne's voice cracked with panic, "you can't simply destroy a legal contract. I paid good money for that girl." "You paid money to her father," Prince Lucian corrected, his tone growing dangerously quiet. "A man who had no right to sell his daughter like livestock. The contract was invalid from the moment it was signed. But the law—" "I am the law," Prince Lucian said, and the chamber seemed to grow even colder. "Or had you forgotten that, Blackthorne?" The flesh trader's face went ashen. "No, Your Highness, of course not. But surely some compensation—" "Your compensation is that I'm allowing you to live." Prince Lucian's eyes began to glow with an inner fire. "Though that generosity is rapidly wearing thin." Blackthorn fell to his knees again, his hands clasped in supplication. "Please, Your Highness, I meant no disrespect. I was simply conducting business." "Your business is concluded," Prince Lucian said with finality. "You will cease all operations involving the sale of human beings, effective immediately. You will also return any other property you currently hold to their families, along with full compensation for their suffering." "That will bankrupt me." "Then you should have chosen a more honorable profession." Prince Lucian turned his attention back to Elara, and his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Miss Whitmore, you are free to go." Elara stared at him in shock. "Free? Completely. The contract that bound you no longer exists, and you are under my protection. No one will harm you again." I don't understand," Elara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Prince Lucian was quiet for a moment, his red eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Perhaps that's something we should remedy," he said finally. "Miss Whitmore, would you do me the honor of allowing me to escort you home?" "Home?" Elara's laugh was bitter. "I don't have a home anymore. My father made that clear when he sold me to pay his debts. Then perhaps you would accept my hospitality until you decide what you wish to do with your newfound freedom." Elara looked around the chamber, at Blackthorn cowering on his knees, at the guards who wouldn't meet her eyes, at the shackles that had so recently bound her wrists. Then she looked back at Prince Lucian, this mysterious vampire who had appeared like an avenging angel to save her from a fate worse than death. "Why?" she asked again. "Why are you helping me?" Prince Lucian extended his hand to her, palm up, in a gesture of invitation rather than command. "Because everyone deserves a choice, Miss Whitmore, and you've had far too few of those in your life." Elara stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment. She could refuse, could walk away and try to make her own way in a world that had already proven how little it valued her. Or she could trust this enigmatic vampire prince who had just torn up her enslavement contract and offered her protection. It wasn't really a choice at all. She placed her hand in his, and the moment their skin touched, she felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with an attraction she couldn't begin to understand. "Thank you," she said softly. Prince Lucian's smile was small, but genuine. "The pleasure is entirely mine, Miss Whitmore." As they left the chamber together, Elara caught a glimpse of Blackthorn's face, twisted with rage and humiliation, his eyes promising revenge. She shivered, and Prince Lucian's hand tightened protectively around hers. "He won't trouble you again," he said quietly. "I give you my word." "And if he tries?" Prince Lucian's smile turned predatory, revealing fangs that gleamed like ivory daggers. "Then he'll discover why even other vampires fear to cross me." The carriage ride to Prince Lucian's estate was conducted in relative silence, though Elara was acutely aware of her companion's presence beside her. He sat with perfect posture, his hands folded in his lap, his red eyes focused on the passing countryside. But she could feel his attention on her like a physical weight, as if he were studying her with the same intensity she was trying not to show while studying him. "You're not what I expected," she said finally, unable to bear the silence any longer. "What did you expect?" Prince Lucian asked, his tone genuinely curious. "A monster," Elara admitted. "The stories about you, they paint you as something to be feared." "I am something to be feared," Prince Lucian said matter-of-factly, "by those who prey on the innocent, who abuse their power, who mistake cruelty for strength. But you, Miss Whitmore, have nothing to fear from me." "How can you be so certain? You barely know me." "I know enough," Prince Lucian said, his red eyes meeting hers directly. "I know that you faced Blackthorn's threats with courage rather than cowering in fear. I know that you were willing to die rather than submit to degradation. I know that despite everything you've endured, you still have fire in your eyes. Fire doesn't make someone trustworthy." "No," Prince Lucian agreed, "but it makes them interesting." Elara felt heat rise in her cheeks at the compliment. "And you find me interesting?" "Extraordinarily so." The way he said it, with such quiet intensity, made her heart skip a beat. This was dangerous territory. Prince Lucian was a vampire, a creature of legend and nightmare. He was also the most powerful supernatural being in the country, someone who could destroy her with a thought. But when he looked at her, she didn't feel like prey. She felt like something precious, something worth protecting. "Tell me about yourself," Prince Lucian said, settling back in his seat. "What did you do before this unfortunate situation?" "I studied," Ilara said. "Medicine, anatomy, anything I could get my hands on. I wanted to be a physician." "Wanted?" "Women can't be physicians," Ilara said with a bitter laugh. "It's not considered proper, but I thought. I hoped that perhaps I could find a way to help people anyway. And now? Now I don't know what I want. 3 days ago I had a life, a purpose, dreams for the future. Now I'm free, but I have nothing. No money, no family, no prospects." "You have your intelligence," Prince Lucian pointed out. "Your courage, your determination. Those are worth more than money or family connections. Pretty words, but they won't put food on the table or a roof over my head." "No," Prince Lucian agreed, "but they might earn you something far more valuable." "Which is?" "Respect, purpose, the opportunity to make a real difference in the world." Ilara studied his profile in the dim light of the carriage. "You speak as if you have something specific in mind." "Perhaps I do. Care to elaborate?" Prince Lucian was quiet for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. "My people, vampires, live in a world that exists parallel to yours. We have our own laws, our own customs, our own problems. One of those problems is medical care. Vampires get sick, not in the traditional sense, but we can be injured, poisoned, cursed. We can suffer from conditions that human medicine doesn't understand and vampire law doesn't adequately address." He turned to look at her directly. "We need someone with medical knowledge who can bridge the gap between human science and supernatural reality." Ilara's pulse quickened. "You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a purpose. The chance to use your knowledge to help people, or beings rather, who desperately need it. And in return, protection, financial security, the opportunity to study medical texts and practices that human physicians have never dreamed of." It was an incredible offer, almost too good to be true, which meant there had to be a catch. "What aren't you telling me?" Ilara asked. Prince Lucian's smile was rueful. "You are perceptive. The position would require you to live in my world, Miss Whitmore, to interact with vampires, werewolves, witches, and other supernatural beings on a daily basis. Many humans find such an existence challenging." "Challenging how?" "Vampires are predators by nature. Even the most civilized of us carry an aura of danger that most humans find unsettling. You would need to overcome that instinctive fear if you hope to treat vampire patients effectively." Ilara considered this. "And you think I can do that?" "I think you're one of the few humans who could. You've already proven that you don't cower in the face of supernatural power. I was terrified of you when you first appeared in that chamber, but you didn't let that terror control you. You maintained your dignity, your composure, your sense of self. That's exactly the kind of strength this position would require." The carriage began to slow, and Ilara looked out the window to see an enormous estate coming into view. Dracul Manor was a Gothic masterpiece, all soaring spires and intricate stonework, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens that seemed to glow in the moonlight. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "It's home," Prince Lucian said simply, "and for as long as you wish, it can be yours as well." As they approached the main entrance, Ilara saw servants waiting to greet them, though she noticed immediately that none of them appeared entirely human. Their skin was too pale, their movements too graceful, their eyes too bright in the darkness. "Your entire staff is supernatural?" she asked. "Mostly vampires with a few werewolves and witches for variety," Prince Lucian confirmed. "I find that supernatural beings make more loyal employees. They understand the value of discretion." The carriage came to a stop, and a footman opened the door. Prince Lucian stepped out first, then turned to offer Ilara his hand. The moment her feet touched the ground, she was surrounded by the scent of night-blooming jasmine and something else, something wild and dangerous that made her pulse quicken. "Welcome to Dracul Manor," Prince Lucian said, his red eyes warm with what might have been affection. "I hope you'll find it to your liking." A woman approached them from the manor's entrance, tall and elegant, with silver hair and the same pale skin as the other servants, but there was something different about her, an authority that marked her as more than just household staff. "Your Highness," the woman said with a curtsy, "welcome home. Mrs. Blackwood, this is Miss Ilara Whitmore. She'll be staying with us indefinitely." Prince Lucian's tone made it clear that this was not a request. "Please see that the Rose Suite is prepared for her, and arrange for a full wardrobe to be delivered tomorrow." "Of course, Your Highness." Mrs. Blackwood turned to Ilara with a warm smile. "Welcome to Dracul Manor, Miss Whitmore. I'm the housekeeper. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." "Thank you," Ilara said, still somewhat overwhelmed by the grandeur of her surroundings. "Mrs. Blackwood will show you to your rooms," Prince Lucian said. "I imagine you're exhausted after your ordeal. We can discuss the details of your position tomorrow evening." "Tomorrow evening?" "I keep nocturnal hours," Prince Lucian explained with a slight smile. "An occupational hazard of being a vampire. But don't worry. The manor is fully staffed during daylight hours, and you're free to explore the grounds and library as you wish." "The library?" "Extensive, including several medical texts that I believe you'll find fascinating." Ilara felt a spark of excitement at the prospect of new knowledge to explore. "Thank you for everything. I still don't understand why you're being so kind to me, but I'm grateful." Prince Lucian was quiet for a moment, his red eyes studying her face in the moonlight. "Perhaps kindness is its own reward, Miss Whitmore. Sleep well." As Mrs. Blackwood led her into the manor, Ilara caught one last glimpse of Prince Lucian standing in the courtyard, his dark figure silhouetted against the night sky. There was something lonely about his posture, something that made her want to turn back and ask him to walk with her just a little longer, but she didn't. Instead, she followed the housekeeper through corridors lined with priceless artwork and into a suite of rooms that was more luxurious than anything she had ever imagined. "The Rose Suite," Mrs. Blackwood announced, opening the door to reveal a sitting room decorated in shades of cream and gold. "Your bedroom is through there, and your dressing room beyond that. I've taken the liberty of having a bath drawn for you. I thought you might appreciate the opportunity to wash away the unpleasantness of the day." "That sounds wonderful," Ilara said gratefully. "Dinner will be served whenever you're ready. Just ring the bell by the fireplace, and Miss Whitmore?" "Yes?" "His Highness is a good man," Mrs. Blackwood said quietly. "I know the stories people tell about him, but I've served in this household for over a century, and I've never seen him show cruelty to anyone who didn't deserve it." "A century?" Mrs. Blackwood smiled, revealing fangs that gleamed in the lamplight. "Vampire, dear, we tend to have long careers." After the housekeeper left, Ilara explored her new accommodations in wonder. The bedroom was dominated by a massive four-poster bed draped in silk, while the dressing room was larger than her entire bedroom had been at her father's house. But it was the bathroom that truly took her breath away, a marble sanctuary with a tub large enough to swim in, already filled with steaming water that smelled of lavender and roses. As she sank into the hot water, Ilara tried to process everything that had happened. This morning she had been a slave, property to be used and discarded at will. Tonight, she was a guest in a vampire prince's manor, being offered a position that would allow her to pursue her dreams of medical practice. It was too good to be true, which meant there had to be a catch she hadn't seen yet. But as she closed her eyes and let the warm water soothe her aching muscles, Ilara found herself thinking not about potential dangers, but about Prince Lucian's red eyes and the way he had looked at her, as if she was something precious rather than something to be feared or pitied. It was a dangerous line of thinking. Prince Lucian was a vampire, a creature of legend and nightmare. He was also centuries older than her and infinitely more powerful. Whatever kindness he was showing her now, it couldn't possibly be based on genuine affection, could it? The next evening, Ilara made her way to Prince Lucian's study, dressed in one of the gowns that had been delivered that afternoon. The dress was a deep emerald green that complemented her eyes, made of silk so fine it felt like water against her skin. She had never owned anything so beautiful, and wearing it made her feel like someone entirely different, someone worthy of a vampire prince's attention. The study was a magnificent room lined with books from floor to ceiling, dominated by a massive desk carved from dark wood. Prince Lucian stood behind it, examining what appeared to be official documents, but he looked up immediately when she entered. "Miss Whitmore," he said, his red eyes warming with what looked like genuine pleasure. "You look lovely." "Thank you," Ilara said, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "The dress is beautiful. All of them are. You're too generous." "Nonsense. You can hardly practice medicine in rags." "About that," Ilara said, moving closer to the desk, "I've been thinking about your offer and I have questions." "Of course you do. Please sit." Prince Lucian gestured to a comfortable chair positioned across from his desk. "Ask me anything you wish." Ilara settled into the chair, trying to project confidence despite her nervousness. "First, what exactly would my duties entail? You mentioned treating supernatural beings, but what kinds of conditions are we talking about?" "Varied," Prince Lucian said, settling into his own chair. "Werewolves sometimes suffer injuries during transformation that don't heal properly. Vampires can be affected by certain poisons or curses that require both medical and magical intervention. Witches occasionally experience magical backlash that manifests as physical symptoms. And you think human medical knowledge would be useful in treating these conditions? I think a combination of human medical knowledge and supernatural understanding would be revolutionary. Most supernatural healers rely purely on magic or traditional remedies. Most human physicians refuse to acknowledge that supernatural beings exist. You would be uniquely positioned to bridge that gap." Ilara nodded slowly. "It sounds fascinating. Challenging, but fascinating. What other questions do you have? What would my living arrangements be? Would I have my own practice or would I work under someone else's supervision?" "You would live here, at the manor, with your own fully equipped medical facility. You would answer only to me and you would have complete autonomy in how you choose to treat your patients. And compensation, generous, more than enough to ensure your comfort and independence." It all sounded too good to be true, which brought Ilara to her most important question. "What do you get out of this arrangement?" she asked bluntly. "You're offering me everything I've ever wanted, the chance to practice medicine, financial security, intellectual freedom. What do you gain in return?" Prince Lucian was quiet for a long moment, his red eyes studying her face with that same intensity she had noticed in the carriage. "The satisfaction of knowing that my people will receive better medical care," he said finally. "That's it? Isn't that enough?" Ilara leaned forward in her chair. "Prince Lucian, I may be young and inexperienced, but I'm not naive. You don't become the heir to a vampire throne by making decisions based purely on altruism. There's something else you want from this arrangement." Prince Lucian's smile was rueful. "You are perceptive. Very well, Miss Whitmore. The truth is that having a human physician in my employ would provide certain political advantages." "What kind of political advantages?" "The supernatural world is not as unified as many humans believe. There are factions, rivalries, power struggles. Having a human ally, particularly one with valuable skills, would strengthen my position considerably. So I would be a political asset." "Among other things, yes." Ilara absorbed this information. "What are the other things?" Prince Lucian hesitated, and for the first time since she had met him, he seemed uncertain. "Miss Whitmore, may I speak frankly?" "Please do. I find myself intrigued by you, your courage, your intelligence, your refusal to be cowed by circumstances that would break most people. I would very much like the opportunity to know you better." Ilara's heart began to race. "You're attracted to me. Profoundly." The admission hung between them, loaded with possibility and danger. Ilara had suspected as much, but hearing him say it aloud made it real in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. "I'm human," she said quietly. "I'm aware of that." "You're a vampire prince. I'm a nobody whose father sold her to pay his gambling debts. You're a brilliant woman with the potential to revolutionize supernatural medicine," Prince Lucian corrected. "Your father's failures don't define you, Miss Whitmore. Even so, we're from completely different worlds." "Are we?" Prince Lucian rose from his chair and moved around the desk to stand closer to her. You're interested in medicine and healing, so am I. You value knowledge and learning, so do I. You believe in helping those who need it regardless of their station in life, so do I. You're immortal. I'll grow old and die while you remain exactly the same. That's true, Prince Lucian acknowledged, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm drawn to you in a way I haven't experienced in centuries. Ilara stood as well, needing to put some distance between them before she did something foolish. This is moving very fast. Is it? I saved you from slavery, offered you a position that would fulfill your dreams, and admitted that I find you attractive. I haven't asked you for anything in return. Haven't you? Prince Lucian's red eyes were intense in the lamplight. What do you think I'm asking for? I don't know, Ilara admitted. That's what scares me. I'm not asking for anything you're not willing to give, Prince Lucian said gently. I'm simply hoping that you might be willing to give me a chance. A chance at what? At proving that not all monsters are what they seem. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. This was Prince Lucian Dracul, heir to the vampire throne, one of the most powerful beings in existence. But in that moment he sounded almost lonely. You're not a monster, Ilara said softly. Aren't I? I've killed people, Miss Whitmore. Many people. I've done things that would horrify you if you knew the details. Have you killed innocent people? No, never. Then you're not a monster. You're a predator who chooses his prey carefully. Prince Lucian's smile was sad. Is there a difference? All the difference in the world. They stood looking at each other across the study, the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities. Ilara knew she was standing at a crossroads. She could accept his offer and step into a world of danger and wonder, or she could refuse and try to make her own way in a world that had already proven how little it valued her. If I accept your offer, she said slowly, what happens between us? Professionally, I mean. Nothing that you don't want to happen, Prince Lucian said immediately. Your position would be secure regardless of any personal relationship we might or might not develop. And if I wanted to leave, if I decided this wasn't working, then you would be free to go with enough money to start a new life wherever you chose. You'd really let me go? Just like that? I told you before, Miss Whitmore, everyone deserves a choice. I won't trap you in a situation you don't want, no matter how much I might wish otherwise. Ilara studied his face, looking for any sign of deception, but his red eyes were steady and sincere, and she found herself believing him completely. All right, she said finally. I accept your offer. The medical position? Both offers, Ilara said, her heart racing at her own boldness. The position and the chance. Prince Lucian's smile was brilliant. You won't regret it. I hope not. When would you like to start? With the medical work, I mean. As soon as possible. I'm eager to see what kinds of cases you have for me. Actually, there's something I should probably mention, Prince Lucian said, his expression growing slightly sheepish. You'll have your first patient tomorrow night. Already, what's the case? A werewolf who was injured during transformation. The wound isn't healing properly, and our usual healers are baffled. Ilara felt a thrill of excitement at the prospect of her first supernatural medical case. What kind of injury? A deep gash across the chest that keeps reopening every time he shifts. It's been 3 weeks and he's growing weaker. That does sound unusual. I'd like to examine him as soon as possible. Excellent. I'll arrange for him to be brought here tomorrow evening. Prince Lucian paused. Miss Whitmore, Ilara, there's something else I should tell you. What? The werewolf in question is my cousin, Marcus. He's important to me. Ilara understood immediately. This wasn't just her first case, it was a test. If she could help Prince Lucian's cousin, she would prove her worth. If she couldn't, I'll do everything I can for him, she promised. I know you will, Prince Lucian said, his red eyes warm with confidence. I have complete faith in your abilities. As Ilara made her way back to her rooms that night, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 24 hours. Yesterday, she had been a slave with no hope for the future. Tonight, she was a physician in the employ of a vampire prince, with the opportunity to practice medicine in ways she had never dreamed possible. And she was also, apparently, the object of that vampire prince's romantic interest. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Prince Lucian was dangerous, there was no denying that, but he was also kind, intelligent, and surprisingly vulnerable beneath his powerful exterior. Most importantly, he saw her as something more than just a pretty face or a useful tool. He valued her mind, her skills, her potential. He had given her choices when no one else would. As she settled into her luxurious bed, Ilara found herself looking forward to tomorrow evening with a mixture of professional excitement and personal anticipation. She would have her first supernatural patient to treat, and she would have more time to explore whatever was developing between her and Prince Lucian. It was, she thought with a smile, going to be quite an adventure. The medical facility that Prince Lucian had prepared for Ilara was beyond anything she could have imagined. Located in the manor's east wing, it consisted of 3 rooms, an examination room equipped with the latest medical instruments, a laboratory stocked with both traditional medicines and mysterious supernatural remedies, and a library containing medical texts in dozens of languages, some of which appeared to be centuries old. "This is incredible," Ilara breathed, running her fingers over a surgical instrument that looked like it had been crafted by a master artisan. "These tools are better than anything I've seen in London hospitals." "I spared no expense," Prince Lucian said, watching her explore with obvious satisfaction. "I wanted you to have everything you might possibly need. Some of these books, they're ancient. Where did you get them?" "I've been collecting medical texts for centuries. Many of them contain knowledge that has been lost to modern medicine, techniques for treating supernatural ailments that human physicians have never encountered." Ilara opened one of the books, marveling at the detailed anatomical drawings of what appeared to be werewolf physiology. "This is fascinating. The bone structure is completely different during transformation, which is why traditional medicine is often ineffective for supernatural beings. Our anatomy changes. Our healing processes are different. Our responses to various treatments don't follow human patterns. And you think combining human medical knowledge with supernatural understanding will be more effective?" "I'm certain of it," Prince Lucian said, "which brings us to your first patient." As if summoned by his words, Mrs. Blackwood appeared in the doorway. "Your Highness, Lord Marcus has arrived. Send him in, please." The man who entered the medical facility was clearly related to Prince Lucian. They shared the same aristocratic bone structure and pale skin. But where Prince Lucian moved with fluid vampire grace, Marcus moved carefully, as if every step caused him pain. His shirt was stained with blood, and Ilara could see the edge of a bandage beneath the fabric. "Marcus," Prince Lucian said warmly, embracing his cousin with obvious affection. "Thank you for coming. This is Dr. Whitmore. She's going to help you." "Doctor?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I thought human women couldn't be physicians." "Dr. Whitmore is exceptional in many ways," Prince Lucian said with a slight smile. "I have complete confidence in her abilities." Ilara felt a warm glow at his faith in her, but she pushed the feeling aside to focus on her patient. "Lord Marcus, I'm going to need to examine your wound. Would you mind removing your shirt?" Marcus glanced at Prince Lucian, who nodded encouragingly. With obvious reluctance, the werewolf unbuttoned his shirt and let it fall to the floor. The wound was immediately visible, a jagged gash across his chest that looked fresh despite being 3 weeks old. The edges were inflamed and weeping, and Ilara could see that it had been repeatedly stitched and re-stitched. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the wound. Marcus nodded, and Ilara began her examination. The moment her fingers touched his skin, she felt something strange, a warmth that seemed to flow from her hands into his body. Marcus's eyes widened in surprise. "What was that?" he asked. I'm not sure," Ilara admitted, looking at her hands in confusion. "I've never felt anything like that before." Prince Lucian moved closer, his red eyes intense with interest. "Describe the sensation." "It was like energy flowing from me into him, warm, tingling, almost electric." "Fascinating," Prince Lucian murmured. "Marcus, how do you feel?" "Better, actually. The pain is less than it's been in weeks." Ilara looked between the two men, completely bewildered. "What just happened?" I believe, Prince Lucian said slowly, that you may have more than just medical training to offer our patients. Some humans are born with natural healing abilities that only manifest when they're exposed to supernatural energies. You think I'm some kind of healer? I think you're exactly what we've been looking for, Prince Lucian said, his voice warm with admiration. A physician who combines medical knowledge with natural healing gifts. Ilara turned her attention back to Marcus's wound, studying it with new eyes. The injury isn't healing because it's not entirely physical, she realized. There's something else affecting it, something magical. The werewolf who attacked me was cursed, Marcus confirmed. His claws carry dark magic that prevents normal healing. Then we need to treat both the physical wound and the magical contamination, Ilara said, her mind already working through possibilities. Lord Marcus, I'm going to try something. It might be uncomfortable. More uncomfortable than having an open wound for 3 weeks. Point taken. Ilara placed her hands on either side of the gash and concentrated, trying to recreate the sensation she had felt before. The warmth returned, stronger this time, flowing from her hands into Marcus's body like a river of light. Marcus gasped, his back arching as the energy coursed through him, but instead of pain, his expression showed relief and wonder. The darkness is leaving, he said in amazement. I can feel it being pushed out. Ilara maintained the flow of energy for several more minutes, until she felt the last traces of magical contamination dissolve. Then she turned to her medical instruments, cleaning and suturing the wound with practiced skill. There, she said finally, stepping back to admire her work. The magical contamination is gone and the wound is properly closed. You should heal normally now. Marcus looked down at his chest in amazement. The angry red inflammation was already beginning to fade, and the wound looked healthier than it had in weeks. Incredible, he breathed. I feel better than I have since the attack. You'll need to keep the wound clean and dry for the next few days, Ilara instructed, falling into her professional manner. No shifting until it's completely healed. The transformation could reopen the sutures. How long will that take? With your supernatural healing abilities, probably less than a week. Marcus turned to Prince Lucian with a grin. Cousin, where did you find this miracle worker? She found me, actually, Prince Lucian said, his red eyes never leaving Ilara's face. Or perhaps we found each other. After Marcus left, promising to return in a few days for a follow-up examination, Ilara found herself alone with Prince Lucian in the medical facility. The success of her first case had left her exhilarated, but also confused about what had happened. The healing energy, she said, settling into a chair by the laboratory table. Is that normal for humans? Extremely rare, Prince Lucian replied, taking the chair across from her. I've encountered perhaps a dozen natural healers in my 5 centuries of existence. Most of them were completely unaware of their abilities until they were exposed to supernatural energies. And you think that's what happened to me? I think your natural gifts were awakened by prolonged exposure to supernatural beings. The trauma of your recent experiences may have acted as a catalyst. Ilara considered this. So being sold into slavery and rescued by a vampire prince actually unlocked magical healing powers. Life has a strange sense of irony, Prince Lucian said with a slight smile. This changes things, doesn't it? My value to you, I mean. Prince Lucian's expression grew serious. Ilara, your value to me has nothing to do with your healing abilities, remarkable as they are. I was attracted to you before I knew you possessed any supernatural gifts. But surely this makes me more useful. You are not useful to me, Prince Lucian interrupted firmly. You are important to me. There's a significant difference. The intensity in his voice made Ilara's heart skip a beat. Important how? Prince Lucian was quiet for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. May I tell you something about vampire nature, Ilara? Of course. We are, by definition, solitary creatures. We don't form attachments easily, and when we do, they tend to be, intense, consuming even. That sounds dangerous. It can be. But it can also be the most beautiful thing in existence. Ilara felt her pulse quicken. Are you saying you're forming an attachment to me? I'm saying I've already formed one, Prince Lucian said quietly. "The question is whether you're willing to explore what that might mean. I barely know you." "Then let me remedy that." Prince Lucian leaned forward in his chair. "What would you like to know about me?" Ilara considered the question. "Everything, your history, your family, what you do when you're not rescuing women from slavery or running supernatural medical facilities. That's quite a lot to cover." "We have time." Prince Lucian's smile was warm and genuine. "Indeed we do." "Very well. Where shall I begin?" "The beginning. How did you become a vampire?" "I was turned in 1523 during a plague outbreak in London. I was a physician then too, one of the few who was willing to treat the poor and desperate." "You were already a doctor?" "Of sorts. Medical knowledge was quite primitive in those days, but I did what I could." Prince Lucian's expression grew distant with memory. "I contracted the plague while treating patients. I was dying when an ancient vampire named Elisabetta found me." "She turned you to save your life?" "She turned me because she was lonely and thought a physician might make an interesting companion. The fact that it saved my life was incidental." "What happened to her?" "She grew bored with me after a few decades and moved on. Vampires who turn others out of loneliness rarely make good sires. They're too focused on their own needs to properly guide their progeny." Ilara heard the pain in his voice, carefully hidden but unmistakable. "She abandoned you." "She gave me the tools to survive, and then left me to figure out the rest on my own. It was difficult." "How did you become a prince?" "The vampire hierarchy is based on age, power, and political acumen. I had the first two, and I learned the third through necessity. When the previous prince was killed in a territorial dispute, I was the logical successor." "Do you enjoy it, being a prince?" Prince Lucian considered the question. "I enjoy the ability to protect those who need protection, to ensure that vampires don't prey indiscriminately on humans, but the political aspect, those are more challenging." "What kind of political aspects?" "Territorial disputes, succession issues, conflicts between different supernatural species. Being a vampire prince means being a diplomat, a judge, and occasionally an executioner." "That sounds lonely." "It is," Prince Lucian admitted, "which is why I value genuine connection so highly." They talked for hours, moving from the medical facility to Prince Lucian's private study, then to the manor's garden as dawn approached. Prince Lucian told her about his centuries of existence, the changes he had witnessed, the challenges of maintaining his humanity while embracing his vampire nature. In return, Ilara shared her own story, her childhood dreams of becoming a physician, her mother's death, her father's gambling addiction, her years of studying in secret because women weren't allowed in medical schools. "You never gave up," Prince Lucian observed as they walked among the night-blooming flowers. "Despite every obstacle, every setback, you continued pursuing your dreams. What else could I do? Give up and accept that my life would be determined by other people's decisions? Many people would have done exactly that." "Then many people lack imagination," Ilara said with a smile. Prince Lucian stopped walking and turned to face her, his red eyes intense in the moonlight. "You are remarkable, Ilara Whitmore." "So are you, Prince Lucian Dracul." They stood looking at each other in the garden, surrounded by the scent of jasmine and roses, the air between them charged with possibility. Ilara was acutely aware of how close they were standing, how the moonlight made his pale skin seem to glow, how his red eyes seemed to see straight into her soul. "Ilara," he said softly, her name a caress on his lips. "Yes?" "May I kiss you?" The question was asked with such gentle formality that it made her heart ache. This powerful, dangerous vampire prince was asking permission to kiss her, as if she were something precious that might break. "Yes," she whispered. Prince Lucian cupped her face in his hands, his touch impossibly gentle. When his lips met hers, the kiss was soft and sweet and perfect, nothing like the violent passion she might have expected from a vampire. When they finally broke apart, Ilara felt dizzy with emotion. "That was," she began, then trailed off, unable to find words. "Perfect," Prince Lucian finished softly. "Absolutely perfect." I should probably go inside, Ilara said reluctantly, noting the growing light on the horizon. And you should probably get out of the sun. Probably, Prince Lucian agreed, though he made no move to release her. Will I see you tomorrow evening? Wild horses couldn't keep me away. As Ilara made her way back to her rooms, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just a few days. She had gone from being a slave to being a physician, from having no prospects to having more opportunities than she had ever dreamed of. And she was falling in love with a vampire prince. It was terrifying and wonderful and completely impossible. But as she settled into her luxurious bed and watched the sun rise over the manor grounds, Ilara found herself looking forward to the evening with an anticipation that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with red eyes and gentle kisses in moonlit gardens. The next few weeks established a routine that Ilara found both professionally fulfilling and personally intoxicating. Her days were spent studying the supernatural medical texts in her library, preparing for the evening's patients. Her evenings were devoted to treating a fascinating variety of supernatural ailments: werewolves with transformation injuries, vampires suffering from blood poisoning, witches experiencing magical backlash. Her natural healing abilities grew stronger with each patient she treated, and she began to understand how to combine her medical knowledge with her supernatural gifts. The results were remarkable. Patients who had suffered for months were healed in a matter of days. Conditions that had baffled other healers responded immediately to her unique approach. But it was her growing relationship with Prince Lucian that truly captured her attention. They spent hours together each evening, talking about everything from medical theory to vampire politics to their shared love of literature. He was intelligent, thoughtful, and surprisingly funny when he allowed himself to relax. He was also incredibly patient with her hesitations about their developing romance. "You're holding back," he observed one evening as they sat in his study, ostensibly reviewing case files, but actually stealing glances at each other. "Am I?" Ilara asked, though she knew he was right. "You kiss me as if you're afraid I might disappear. You look at me as if you're waiting for me to reveal some terrible secret that will change everything between us." Ilara set down the file she had been pretending to read. "Maybe I am. What terrible secret are you expecting?" "I don't know, that's what makes it terrible." Prince Lucian moved from behind his desk to sit beside her on the sofa. "Ilara, what are you afraid of?" "Everything," she admitted. "I'm afraid that this is too good to be true. I'm afraid that you'll grow bored with me the way your sire grew bored with you. I'm afraid that I'm just a novelty to you, the human who can heal supernatural beings. And I'm afraid that I'm falling in love with you so fast and so completely that it terrifies me." Prince Lucian's smile was soft and understanding. "Those are all reasonable fears." "They are, completely. But Ilara, may I tell you what I'm afraid of? Please. I'm afraid that you'll realize you could have any life you wanted, practice medicine in London, marry a nice human man, have children and a normal existence, and you'll decide that a vampire prince isn't worth the complications. Is that what you think I want? A normal existence? I think you deserve the choice." Ilara turned to face him fully, studying his aristocratic features in the firelight. "Prince Lucian, do you know what I was thinking about yesterday when I was treating that witch with the cursed burn?" "What?" "I was thinking about how grateful I am that my father sold me into slavery." Prince Lucian's eyebrows rose. "That's an unusual sentiment. If he hadn't, I never would have met you. I never would have discovered my healing abilities. I never would have found a purpose that fulfills me so completely." Ilara reached for his hands, intertwining their fingers. "I never would have fallen in love with a man who sees me as an equal, who values my mind as much as my appearance, who gives me choices instead of making demands. Ilara, I'm not afraid of complications." "Prince Lucian, I'm afraid of simplicity. I'm afraid of a life without challenge, without growth, without the possibility of making a real difference in the world." "And you think you can find those things with me?" "I know I can. The question is whether you're willing to let me try." Prince Lucian's red eyes were intense with emotion. "I've been waiting 5 centuries for someone like you. Ilara, I'm not going anywhere." "Promise me something," Ilara said. "Anything. Promise me that you'll never treat me like I'm fragile. I know I'm human, I know I'm mortal, but I'm also strong enough to handle whatever comes with loving a vampire prince." "I promise," Prince Lucian said solemnly, "but you have to promise me something in return." "What?" "Promise me that you'll tell me if this life becomes too much for you. If the danger, the politics, the supernatural complications become overwhelming, I need to know." "I promise." They sealed their promises with a kiss that was deeper and more passionate than any they had shared before. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Ilara," Prince Lucian said against her lips. "Yes, I love you." The words hung between them, simple and profound and life-changing. Ilara felt her heart swell with emotion so intense it was almost painful. "I love you too," she whispered. Prince Lucian's smile was brilliant. "Then perhaps it's time we made this official." "Official how?" To Ilara's shock, Prince Lucian slid off the sofa and onto one knee, producing a ring box from his coat pocket. "Ilara Whitmore, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Ilara stared at him in stunned silence. Are you proposing?" "I am indeed. Though I should probably mention that vampire proposals are slightly different from human ones." "Different how?" "If you accept, you'll become a vampire princess. You'll have political responsibilities, social obligations, and a target on your back from anyone who opposes my rule. And if I refuse, then you'll break my heart, but I'll respect your decision." Ilara looked down at him, this powerful, dangerous vampire prince kneeling before her with vulnerability written across his aristocratic features. A month ago, she had been a slave with no future. Now she was being offered a crown. "What about children?" she asked. "Vampires can't have children, can they?" "Not in the traditional sense, but there are. Alternatives: adoption, magical conception, turning human children who need families. We would have options. And my medical practice would continue exactly as it is now, with the added benefit of having royal protection for your patients." "The ring," Ilara said, nodding toward the box in his hands. "May I see it?" Prince Lucian opened the box to reveal a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. It was the most beautiful piece of jewelry Ilara had ever seen. "It belonged to my mother," Prince Lucian said softly. "She was human when she married my father. The ring is enchanted to protect the wearer from supernatural threats." "Your mother was human?" "She was. My father turned her after their wedding, and they ruled together for over 3 centuries before they chose to enter eternal rest. They chose to die. Vampires can choose to end their existence when they feel their time is complete. My parents decided they had lived fully and were ready to move on to whatever comes next." Ilara absorbed this information, understanding the deeper meaning behind his proposal. "You're not just asking me to marry you, you're asking me to become immortal. Eventually, yes, but not immediately. The choice of when or if you undergo the transformation would be entirely yours. And if I chose to remain human, then I would love you for whatever time we had together, whether that's decades or centuries." Ilara looked into his red eyes, seeing the sincerity and love there. This was Prince Lucian Dracul, heir to the vampire throne, offering her not just his heart but his crown, his world, his eternity. "Yes," she said softly. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll become a vampire princess. Yes to all of it." Prince Lucian's smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and the moment it touched her skin, Ilara felt a warm tingle of protective magic settling around her. "You've made me the happiest vampire in existence," he said, rising to pull her into his arms. "When?" Ilara asked as he spun her around the study. "When what? When do we get married? When do I become a princess? When does my life become even more impossibly wonderful than it already is?" "As soon as you wish," Prince Lucian said, setting her down but keeping his arms around her. "Though I should warn you, vampire royal weddings are elaborate affairs. There will be politics, ceremony, and supernatural dignitaries from across Europe. Sounds terrifying. Completely. But you'll have me by your side through all of it. Then I can handle anything." As they planned their future together, Ilara reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. She had been sold as a slave, rescued by a vampire prince, discovered magical healing abilities, and was now engaged to royalty. It was the kind of story that belonged in fairy tales, not real life. But as Prince Lucian held her close and described the life they would build together, Ilara realized that sometimes reality could be more magical than any fairy tale. 3 months later, the great cathedral of the vampire court was a sight to behold. Ancient stone arches soaring toward a vaulted ceiling, painted with scenes of supernatural history, stained glass windows depicting the great vampire houses, and an altar carved from a single piece of black marble that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Ilara stood in the bride's chamber, surrounded by vampire ladies-in-waiting who had been helping her prepare for the ceremony. Her wedding dress was a masterpiece of silk and lace, designed specifically for a vampire royal wedding, elegant and regal, with a train that stretched for yards behind her. "You look magnificent, Your Highness," said Lady Catherine, one of Prince Lucian's cousins who had become a close friend over the past months. "Though I must say, you seem remarkably calm for someone about to marry into the most powerful vampire family in Europe." "Should I be nervous?" Ilara asked, adjusting the sapphire tiara that would mark her as a vampire princess. "Most brides are terrified," Lady Catherine admitted. "The ceremony is quite intense." Ilara had learned about vampire wedding traditions during her months of preparation. Unlike human ceremonies, vampire weddings involved blood oaths, magical bindings, and rituals that dated back thousands of years. The bride and groom would literally bind their souls together, creating a connection that would last for eternity. "I'm not most brides," Ilara said with a smile, "and Lucian isn't most grooms." "No, he certainly isn't. I've never seen him as happy as he's been these past months. You've been good for him, Ilara. He's been good for me too." A soft knock at the chamber door interrupted their conversation. Mrs. Blackwood entered carrying a small wooden box. "A gift from His Highness," the housekeeper said, presenting the box to Ilara. "He wanted you to have it before the ceremony." Inside the box was a delicate silver pendant shaped like a medical caduceus, but with supernatural symbols worked into the design. A note in Prince Lucian's elegant handwriting accompanied it. "For the woman who heals both bodies and souls, with all my love, El." "It's beautiful," Ilara breathed, fastening the pendant around her neck. "The symbols are protective wards," Lady Catherine observed. "Very powerful ones. He's ensuring that you'll be safe no matter what supernatural threats you might face as a princess." "Ready, Your Highness?" Mrs. Blackwood asked. "It's time." Ilara took a deep breath, smoothed her skirts, and nodded. "I'm ready." The cathedral was packed with supernatural dignitaries from across Europe, vampire lords and ladies, werewolf alphas, powerful witches, and beings Ilara couldn't even identify. All had come to witness the marriage of Prince Lucian to his human bride. As Ilara walked down the aisle, she was acutely aware of the attention focused on her. Some faces showed curiosity, others approval, and a few displayed barely concealed hostility. Not everyone was pleased that the vampire prince was marrying a human, but when her eyes found Prince Lucian waiting at the altar, everything else faded away. He looked magnificent in his formal court attire, a black velvet coat embroidered with silver thread, a ceremonial sword at his side, and a crown that marked him as heir to the vampire throne. His red eyes were warm with love and pride as she approached, and his smile was soft and genuine. This was the man who had saved her from slavery, who had given her purpose and love and a future beyond her wildest dreams. "You look beautiful," he murmured as she reached his side. "So do you," she replied, taking his offered arm. The ceremony itself was unlike anything Ilara had ever experienced. The vampire priest spoke in ancient languages, invoking powers that made the air itself seem to thrum with energy. When it came time for the blood oath, Prince Lucian produced a ceremonial dagger with a blade that gleamed like starlight. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly, offering her the blade. "Once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me for eternity." "I've never been more certain of anything," Ilara replied, taking the dagger without hesitation. They each made a small cut on their palms, then pressed their hands together, allowing their blood to mingle. The moment their blood touched, Ilara felt a surge of power unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was as if lightning had struck her, filling every cell of her body with supernatural energy. But more than that, she could feel Prince Lucien's presence in her mind, his thoughts, his emotions, his love for her flowing through their newly formed bond. "I can feel you," she whispered in wonder. "And I can feel you," he replied, his mental voice as clear as if he had spoken aloud. "We're connected now, Ilara. Forever." The priest continued the ceremony, binding them not just as husband and wife but as partners in power. When Prince Lucien placed a second ring on her finger, this one bearing the seal of the vampire royal house, Ilara officially became Princess Ilara Dracul. "You may kiss your bride," the priest announced. Prince Lucien cupped her face in his hands, his touch sending sparks of electricity through their bond. When he kissed her, Ilara felt their connection deepen even further, their souls intertwining in ways that transcended the physical. The cathedral erupted in applause, some enthusiastic, some polite, but all acknowledging that they had just witnessed the creation of one of the most powerful supernatural partnerships in centuries. As they walked back down the aisle together, Ilara caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd, Lord Blackthorn, the flesh trader who had originally purchased her. His expression was twisted with rage and humiliation, and she felt a chill of foreboding. "He's here," she said quietly to Prince Lucien through their mental link. "I know. I've been watching him. He won't cause trouble. Not here, not today. But later. Later we'll deal with whatever comes, together." The wedding reception was held in the Great Hall of the Vampire Court, a magnificent space that had hosted royal celebrations for over 1,000 years. Ilara found herself the center of attention, receiving congratulations and gifts from supernatural dignitaries who were clearly eager to curry favor with the new princess. "Your Highness," said a distinguished vampire lord, bowing deeply, "allow me to present a gift from the House of Montclair." The gift was a set of medical instruments crafted from enchanted silver, designed specifically for treating supernatural ailments. It was both thoughtful and valuable, and Ilara accepted it graciously. "Thank you, Lord Montclair. These will be invaluable in my medical practice." "You intend to continue practicing medicine?" asked a vampire lady, whose tone suggested she found the idea unseemly. "Of course," Ilara replied firmly. "Healing is my calling, and becoming a princess doesn't change that." "How unusual," the lady said with barely concealed disapproval. "How wonderful," corrected another voice. Ilara turned to see an elegant woman approaching, tall and regal, with silver hair and eyes like sapphires. "I'm Countess Ravenna, and I think it's marvelous that we'll have a healer in the royal family." "Thank you, Countess. I have a proposition for you if you're interested. I run a network of supernatural healers across Europe. Witches, vampire physicians, werewolf shamans. We could use someone with your unique abilities to coordinate our efforts." Ilara felt a thrill of excitement. "That sounds fascinating. I'd love to hear more about it." As the evening progressed, Ilara found herself enjoying the political aspects of her new role more than she had expected. Yes, there were those who disapproved of Prince Lucien's choice of bride, but there were also many who saw her as a valuable addition to the vampire court. "You're a natural at this," Prince Lucien observed as they danced together, moving in perfect synchronization thanks to their supernatural bond. "At what?" "Court politics. You've already identified potential allies, neutralized hostile questions, and established yourself as someone to be respected rather than dismissed." "I had a good teacher," Ilara said, smiling up at him. "I didn't teach you that. That's pure instinct. Maybe I'm more suited to this life than either of us realized." "Maybe you are." Their dance was interrupted by a commotion near the hall's entrance. Lord Blackthorn had apparently attempted to approach the royal table and been stopped by guards. His face was red with wine and fury, and his voice carried across the hall. "This is an outrage," he shouted. "That woman was my property. I paid good money for her." The hall fell silent, every supernatural being present turning to stare at the drunken human who had dared to make such a claim about their new princess. Prince Lucien's expression went deadly cold. "Excuse me," he said to Ilara, his mental voice promising swift and terrible retribution. "Wait," Ilara said, placing a hand on his arm. "Let me handle this." "Ilara, trust me. Prince Lucian studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "As you wish, my love." Ilara walked across the hall toward Blackthorn, her wedding dress rustling with each step. The crowd parted before her, creating a clear path between the new princess and the man who had once owned her. "Lord Blackthorn," she said when she reached him, her voice carrying clearly through the silent hall, "how good of you to attend our wedding." "You know this is illegal," Blackthorn snarled. "You were my property. I have rights." "You had a contract," Ilara corrected calmly. "A contract that was torn up by my husband, making it null and void. He had no right, he had every right. As a vampire prince, his authority supersedes any human legal document." Ilara's voice grew stronger, more commanding. "But more importantly, no one has the right to own another person. What you did was slavery, Lord Blackthorn, and slavery is an abomination." "You're just a woman. You have no authority to—" "I am Princess Ilara Dracul," Ilara said, her voice ringing with power. "I am a healer, a member of the vampire royal family, and someone who has chosen to dedicate her life to protecting those who cannot protect themselves." She stepped closer to Blackthorn, and he actually cowered before her presence. "You made the mistake of thinking that, because I was human, I was weak. You were wrong then, and you're wrong now." What are you going to do to me?" Ilara smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "Nothing, because you're going to leave here tonight and never engage in the slave trade again. You're going to free any people you currently hold, compensate them for their suffering, and find a new line of work. And if I refuse, then you'll answer to my husband. And I assure you, Lord Blackthorn, his methods of persuasion are far less gentle than mine." Blackthorn looked around the hall, taking in the faces of hundreds of supernatural beings who were watching him with expressions ranging from disgust to barely contained violence. He was outnumbered, outmatched, and completely at their mercy. "Fine," he said finally. I'll do as you say." "Excellent. Guards, please escort Lord Blackthorn from the premises and ensure that he understands he is no longer welcome at court." As Blackthorn was led away, the hall erupted in applause. Ilara had just demonstrated that she was not merely Prince Lucian's human bride, but a force to be reckoned with in her own right. "Magnificent," Prince Lucian said as she returned to his side. "Absolutely magnificent." "Was I too harsh?" "You were perfect. Firm but fair, powerful but not cruel. You've just earned the respect of every supernatural being in this hall. Good, because I have plans for this position, and I'll need their support to implement them." "What kind of plans?" Ilara smiled, her eyes bright with purpose. "Plans to revolutionize supernatural medicine, to create networks of healers across Europe, to use our combined power to protect those who need protection. Our power. We're partners now, remember, in everything." Prince Lucian's smile was brilliant with love and pride. "Indeed we are, Princess Ilara. Indeed we are." As the reception continued around them, Ilara reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. 6 months ago, she had been a desperate young woman sold into slavery to pay her father's debts. Tonight she was a vampire princess with the power to change the supernatural world. But more than that, she was deeply, completely, eternally in love with the vampire prince who had seen her worth when no one else would. "No regrets?" Prince Lucian asked, reading her thoughts through their bond. "None," Ilara replied firmly. "This is exactly where I belong, even though your life will never be simple again. Especially because of that, simple lives are overrated. And when people ask how a human became a vampire princess," Ilara smiled, remembering the moment that had changed everything, Prince Lucian tearing up her slavery contract and offering her a choice. "I'll tell them the truth," she said, "that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the most terrible circumstances. That freedom is worth fighting for, and that some contracts are meant to be torn up so that better ones can be written." "What kind of better contracts?" "The kind written in love instead of desperation, the kind that bind souls together instead of enslaving them, the kind that last for eternity." Prince Lucian pulled her close, their bond humming with shared love and purpose. "I love you, Princess Ilara Dracul. I love you too, Prince Lucien, my savior, my husband, my eternal partner. As they danced together in the great hall, surrounded by the supernatural elite of Europe, Elara knew that her real adventure was just beginning. She had found love, purpose and power beyond her wildest dreams, and she had found it all because a vampire prince had chosen to tear up a contract and offer her something infinitely more valuable, a choice, a future, and a love that would last forever. Epilogo. 1 year later, Princess Elara Dracul stood in her medical facility, putting the finishing touches on a revolutionary new treatment for lycanthrope transformation injuries. The past year had been a whirlwind of activity, establishing healing networks across Europe, treating supernatural patients from dozens of different species, and gradually earning her place as one of the most respected figures in the vampire court. "Your Highness," Mrs. Blackwood said, appearing in the doorway with a warm smile. "Prince Lucien has returned from his diplomatic mission." Elara's heart leaped with joy. Lucien had been gone for 2 weeks, negotiating a peace treaty between warring werewolf packs in Scotland. It was the longest they had been separated since their wedding, and she had missed him terribly. "Where is he?" she asked, already moving toward the door. "The throne room. He's just finished briefing the council on the negotiations." Elara made her way through the manor's corridors, her steps quickening with each turn. When she reached the throne room, she found Lucien standing before a massive map, pointing out territorial boundaries to several vampire lords. The moment he sensed her presence, his head turned, and his face lit up with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. "Gentlemen," he said to the assembled lords, "we'll continue this discussion tomorrow evening. I have more pressing matters to attend to." The lords took the hint and filed out of the room, leaving Elara and Lucien alone. The moment the door closed, he crossed the room in a blur of vampire speed and swept her into his arms. "I missed you," he said against her lips before kissing her with all the passion of a man who had been separated from his beloved for far too long. "I missed you too," Elara replied when they finally broke apart. "How did the negotiations go?" "Successfully. The werewolf packs have agreed to a territorial division that should prevent future conflicts." Lucien's expression grew serious. "But that's not the most important news I have to share." "What is it?" "I received word from the Vampire Council in Rome. They're formally recognizing our healing network as an official institution of the Vampire Court. You'll have funding, legal protection, and the authority to establish healing centers in any supernatural territory." Elara gasped. "That's incredible. Do you know what this means? That my brilliant wife is about to revolutionize supernatural medicine across the entire continent?" "Exactly!" Elara threw her arms around his neck, spinning with excitement. "We can help so many people, Lucien. Vampires, werewolves, witches, humans who've been affected by supernatural incidents, everyone." "We?" "Of course we. You don't think I'm doing this without my partner, do you?" Lucien's smile was soft and loving. "I wouldn't dream of it, though I should mention that there's one condition to the Council's approval." "What condition?" "They want to meet with you personally. There's a formal ceremony in Rome next month, where you'll be officially invested as the Director of Supernatural Healing for the European Vampire Territories." "A ceremony? With the entire Vampire Council?" "The entire Council, plus representatives from every major supernatural house in Europe. It's quite an honor, Elara. You'll be the first human ever to hold such a position." Elara felt a flutter of nervousness mixed with excitement. "No pressure at all. You'll be magnificent," Lucien said confidently. "You always are." As they walked together toward their private chambers, Elara reflected on how much her life had changed since that terrible night when she had been sold to pay her father's debts. She had gone from being property to being one of the most powerful women in the supernatural world. But more than that, she had found a love that transcended every obstacle, every difference, every challenge they had faced. "Lucien," she said as they reached their rooms. "Yes, my love." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't appeared in that chamber? If you hadn't torn up Blackthorn's contract?" Lucien was quiet for a moment, his red eyes growing distant. "I try not to. The thought of you suffering at his hands, of never meeting you, of living the rest of eternity without you, it's unbearable. But you did appear. You did save me. We saved each other, Lucian corrected gently. You saved me from loneliness, from the emptiness of existing without purpose beyond duty. You gave me love, partnership, a reason to build something beautiful instead of simply maintaining what already existed. And you gave me freedom, purpose, and a love I never thought possible. We make a good team. The best, Ilara agreed, rising on her toes to kiss him again. As they held each other in the moonlight streaming through their chamber windows, Ilara thought about the future they were building together. There would be challenges ahead, political opposition, supernatural threats, the constant balancing act of maintaining peace between different species. But they would face it all together, bound by love and purpose and the unbreakable bond they had forged. I love you, Princess Ilara Dracul, Lucian murmured against her hair. I love you too, Prince Lucian, my savior, my partner, my eternal love. And in the distance, carried on the night wind, came the sound of healing, patients being cured, lives being saved, hope being restored to those who had thought all hope was lost. It was the sound of a contract rewritten in love instead of desperation, of freedom chosen over slavery, of two souls who had found in each other the missing pieces of themselves. It was the sound of a love story that had begun with the tearing of one contract and the writing of another, one that would last for all eternity. What an absolutely breathtaking journey we just experienced. From that heart-stopping opening where Ilara was literally in chains, to Prince Lucian dramatically tearing up that slavery contract, to their gorgeous royal wedding where she became a vampire princess, every moment had me completely captivated. The way Lucian saw Ilara's true worth when everyone else saw her as property just melted my heart completely. And watching her transform from a desperate slave into a powerful princess who revolutionized supernatural medicine, pure perfection. That scene where she faced down Blackthorn at their wedding reception and put him in his place was absolutely iconic. I'm still getting chills thinking about their blood oath ceremony and how their souls literally bound together for eternity. The way their love story unfolded through healing, partnership, and mutual respect was just chef's kiss perfect. Which moment hit you hardest? Was it when Lucian first appeared like an avenging angel to save her? When he proposed with his mother's enchanted ring? Or that powerful wedding scene where she officially became vampire royalty? If this story of contracts, torn up for love, slavery transformed into sovereignty, and healing that goes beyond the physical moved your soul, smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Your support helps me bring you more epic tales where love conquers even the darkest circumstances. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think you could have handled Ilara's transformation from slave to princess as gracefully as she did? And what did you think of Lucian's patience in letting their relationship develop naturally, instead of rushing things? Plus, I'm dying to know which supernatural healing case you found most fascinating. Next week, I'm bringing you another spellbinding romance. The Demon Lord's daughter was sent to kill him, but she fell in love with her target instead. Get ready for forbidden love, family betrayal, and a heroine who has to choose between duty and her heart. Until then, remember that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin when someone chooses to tear up the contracts that bind us and write new ones based on love, respect, and eternal partnership.